First, I want everyone to, well, my name is Gregory St. Floyd. I'm the executive director here at 100 State. 100 State is a co-working space, so that's the space that you're in right now. We have over 300 members, so a lot of different entrepreneurs, startups, nonprofits, freelancers, and artists. All of them consider this their home. So this is their business address. This is where they find their ideas, their partners, find resources, a lot of different activities, and we do a lot of different events like this to have different discussions on different topics in Madison, and we work with partners like the CapTimes on these discussions. So first, I want everyone to give a big round of applause to the panelists that's here, because they're really amazing. Everyone give a round of applause. And I'm going to hand this over to a person that's really awesome and really a big person that's really awesome in the Madison entrepreneurial ecosystem. So she's the founder of the Doyen Group. So I'm giving it over to Heather, and I want everyone to give a big round of applause to Heather.
I have notes in case I forget what I'm supposed to say. All right, so I want to thank all of you for coming out this evening. Thank you for making this commitment to our community, saying that we are going to invest and we are going to stand with women entrepreneurs and make Madison a place for women to grow, launch, and succeed at running their businesses. So as Greg mentioned, my name is Heather, and I am the co-founder and executive director of Doyen. Doyen is a French word. It means senior or most prominent woman in her field. And we work with women entrepreneurs to help them launch and scale their businesses. So we are unleashing the power and potential of women entrepreneurs through professional development programming, collaborations within the community, opening doors to help women meet the people they need to be connected with, and then funding the ventures. So we are launching our Evergreen Fund to be able to provide grants, loans, and equity investments for women entrepreneurs coming up within the next month or so. We're really excited about that. And then we actually just launched our application yesterday for our 5x5x5. So the jewel of all trades have presented at our 5x5x5. So it's 5 women businesses from across Wisconsin. Each give a 5-minute pitch, and one of them goes home with $5,000. And this year will be the 4th time we're holding this event. It takes place during Forward Fest. And so, like I said, the application is open until June 4th for any woman-led venture. It could be a team, it can be a man and a woman. It just has to be majority shares owned by a female or multiple females to be able to submit an application. So I also want to mention just a couple of stats. Women entrepreneurs are launching over 1,200 businesses a day in our nation. We are out succeeding our male counterparts. We are leading the way as it comes to launching, creating revenue, and also job creation within our economy. So not only are we the future, we are also leading the future, and we're leading our economy, and we're making this country a better place for all of us who live here as women entrepreneurs. So thank you for all of you who are doing what you're doing out there. Thank you for all of you who are supporting and allies and collaborators within our community. And we really want to see Madison a top city and lead the way for how to make a supportive ecosystem for women entrepreneurs. And I'm so glad that all of you are joining us along this. Thank you.
My name is Chris Murphy. I'm the managing editor of the CapTimes, and I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. We've really been looking forward to this panel for a long time, and I promise I'll go quickly because I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Lisa Speckhard, to introduce the panel. But I want to say just a few words about CapTimes Talks. We started these about 2 years ago as a new way to connect with audiences, and we've really been pleased with the response from folks like you. We're also really pleased to have a sponsor, Heartland Credit Union, whose generosity helps enable us to do this. So we give them a round of applause. Appreciate it. And these talks have also been a great way for us to connect with the community here at 100 State. It's been about 2 years since we've been organizational members, and can't say enough about how great it's been to be part of this. This is, I think, the 5th talk that we've done. Looking forward to doing a lot more. This is the first one we've done in their great new space here. I really like it here. About tonight, Lisa has questions prepared for the panel, but there are ways that you can participate too as we go along. If you're on Twitter, you can tweet questions at CapTimes or using the CT Entrepreneurs hashtag. Or I've also left note cards on the chairs. I can come around and pick those up in about half an hour and bring questions up to Lisa. and we'll try to get to those in the time that we've got, though I can't promise we will. Once the panel discussion is over in about an hour or so, we'll be moving to the brainstorming piece, and I believe that Kristen is going to give instruction at that point about where we move into that. So without any further delay, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa, who is our Metro reporter at the CapTimes. Please give her a warm welcome.
Okay, so I'm just going to briefly introduce everyone here, and then we'll jump into the questions. So I'm going to go straight down the line. First, we have Chandra Miller-Feenan. She's Director of Operations and Programming at Starting Block Madison, which is a collaborative entrepreneurial center. After that, we have Ruth Rawlick. She is a City of Madison Business Development Specialist. Next on the line, we have Rachel Neal. She is the CEO of Carrick's Consulting Group, and she's a community organizer for 1 Million Cups, and also describes herself as a startup junkie. Then we have Angela Ferguson. She's the director of Angel Joy Learning Center, which is a child care center on the west side of Madison, where their motto is build, develop, and grow. Then we have Jim Rensick. He is the founder of software development company Adorable. And then finally, all the way down there at the end, we have Alex Surprise. She is a former campaign finance attorney and now a strategic counsel at Markable, which is a fashion technology app. So we're going to jump right in. The first, we're going to get right into the problem here. This is open to anyone who wants to answer. Is in Madison, what are some of the most pervasive barriers to women's success as entrepreneurs? Go for it.
Can you hear me?
I get right up close.
Awesome. Not being taken seriously. Your opinions are not validated unless it's validated by a man first. That's one of the major ones that I've seen.
Have you experienced that in personally?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Another one is it takes women longer to establish themselves in the field than it does for men.
If I add on to that, I recently experienced this where a male CEO reached out to me and asked me how my family business was going. And I don't think that if I had been a man, somebody would have called my business a family business. It's not a family business. We have investors, we're cash flow positive, we've got a whole team, so.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say too, sort of as is indicative of the entire country, and I think some of the work that Doyen has done has brought this forward. It often is the case that women are underfunded and businesses are underfunded, and I think that that's something that's very true in Madison too, that it's just harder to raise the level of capital that male-owned businesses are able to raise, and so groups like Doyen are working on that right now.
No, I definitely think I would reiterate that there's a cultural component between that women and women entrepreneurs have to work for, and we need partners that are also in the non-women entrepreneur side of the equation. But then there's the access and capital component, and again, the City of Madison and the Doyen Group with launching the Evergreen Fund was specifically designed to help that. And I can't tell you how many times we talk to women outside of the Madison region who say, your city did what? They actually put money in, and it's really, so it's something that is leading the edge on that. And so I'm really excited to see where that goes in a couple of years. So that's a piece of it.
Anyone else? Okay. And with that then, so there's these barriers that you've established. How are those compounded, or I guess if and how are they compounded for women of color?
I'll speak on that because I'm the only one of color. So that is, being a woman of color coming into the workforce is a unique experience because as you go forward, there are so many barriers to it. I'll give you an example. 15 years old, my first job interview, so excited. Called my auntie, my mom, and they gave me a whole list of things. Unbraid your hair and make sure you straighten it. make sure that when you look at them, don't stare at them too long in their eyes, put your head down, because you don't want to come off as offensive or too strong. So there were so many things that when I went into the interview, I was like, I look back down, I look back up, like not sure what I should do or how to conduct myself in a job interview. And those are some of the barriers that we have. When things don't go your way, trying to figure out how to say it without offending somebody, making them think that you're coming off too strong because you're afraid that you may lose your job because someone may take it the wrong way. But there are a lot of barriers of being colored that when you come in, most people think, okay, here's a list of questions that I need to answer, whereas you have to worry about your disposition, make sure you sit up straight, don't look them in the eye, relax your shoulders, make sure your hair is straight, make sure you speak a certain way. So there are barriers that come right at the beginning.
And you have to do all that while being authentic,
Yes.
right?
Agreed.
No, I think that it's really the case for women entrepreneurs that, just like all entrepreneurs, if you want to be compelling, you have to be confident. And to be confident, you have to be authentic to yourself. You have to have confidence in yourself. And so that is just something that we have to do. We have to be confident in ourselves. I think we're moving the culture so that we don't have to conform anymore. We're going to ask the dominant male culture of entrepreneurship, of business, of investors, you need to come to where we are and understand where we are as well. We're not going to always conform to you, because otherwise they can't see how much conforming we're doing. And when you're a woman of color, you're double conforming. So really standing up and saying, this is where I am. If you believe in me and if you believe in what I'm doing, then you have to invest in me or you have to get behind me. We can cross mentor, but on the investor side, investors typically, they invest by tribe, right? So they invest to the people that they know, and that can be alums, that can be old boy networks, that can be in one particular field. And so that's a structural thing that I think can only be changed when more women are on the investing side, where more women are making those choices to invest in women entrepreneurs and businesses. So that's a piece of that. And that means also more women of color on the investor side. They can really change the dynamic of what it means for a woman to go in and pitch to a VC. If you saw one woman in that room or one person of color, you know it's going to be a different conversation when you walk out.
Yeah, speaking of like confidence and the balance between women having to kind of put themselves in male spaces versus males accommodating for that. I want to direct this question to you, Ruth, first, and then whoever else wants to pick up on it can. But you pointed out to me this recent study that showed that the female Supreme Court justices are interrupted way more than male Supreme Court justices. So what's the balance between training women to assert themselves versus training and teaching men to appreciate women's input?
Right, and I that's like my favorite study right now, because they're interrupted not by their other male counterparts on the court, but by attorneys that are appearing before them. So it's just one of those perfect examples of that you can reach the highest, one of the highest achievable levels and still be talked over in your job, which is sort of interesting. And I always tell the story about my sister in law school, and I'll try to do it really quick, but when she was in law school in the early 2000s, she was in a class and most of the men were speaking, and the professor became concerned about it because he's like, oh, I want to have the women speak too. And so he took aside some women and said, I want you to speak more. What can I do to make you speak more? And my sister said, make the men speak less. They're not adding value to the conversation. They're sort of humble bragging about their trips to Costa Rica or whatever they were doing, their time in the Peace Corps, and they're not actually adding value to the conversation. So it's not just about that equal time or equal space, it's sort of monitoring these spaces to actually make sure that everyone's adding the same amount of value. So it may be that women don't speak as much in a group, but maybe what they're saying has stronger value or whatever. So I guess that's sort of what I'm saying, is finding men as allies. And I think we've moved past just with the conversation of women versus men in entrepreneurship, from the basics of, you know, strong leadership, and I think that we all recognize that women bring those things to the table. I think it's recognizing that there's still a lot of spaces that are male dominated, and we need to rely on our male allies to kind of help recognize when that's happening and adjust so that there's space for inclusion. And I think that one of the great male allies that the city had was in Scott Resnick, who put together the city funding for this entrepreneurship fund that Doyen is managing now. Starting Block is a fantastic project, and it could easily become a white male-dominated project. If you think about that it's sort of focused on technology and entrepreneurship, that's a space that tends to be that trends that way naturally. And so it's sort of having someone say, okay, if we're going to make this huge investment, if the city's going to make a huge investment in this project, it has to be inclusive, and we have to set up some programming and funding beforehand to be very intentional about that. So to me, it's just making sure that if you are that man interrupting someone over and over again in a meeting, or you're in a meeting and it's all men, or you're on a panel and it's all men, that you speak up as a man and help support our fight. Thank you.
Can I just say one thing about that study? Because my first career was actually as a lawyer, and I find the study fascinating, and I think it's gotten a lot of social media for us to think about. But also, I want to put it in the larger context of it was about interruption. Remember that every single one of those women justices get the same vote. So it didn't actually, I don't think it affects the outcome. I'd be interested in seeing if they could figure out how that interruption somehow affected the outcome, but it didn't actually affect the outcome on the Supreme Court. I don't think it actually affects the outcome of the cases, whether you have a male litigator or a female litigator who gets interrupted or doesn't get interrupted. So we have to keep it in the context of it's an example of what happens, but then what we really care about is what the outcome and the impact is.
I recently took a class called Speaking While Female. Veronica Rickert, who works for WPR, put on this awesome group. She was a presenter at 1 Million Cups a couple weeks ago, and it was fascinating to hear some of the points that she had. And she had actually started doing this because in radio she was with a lot of men, and she realized that the women at the table weren't speaking up, or they were getting interrupted. And she thought, well, why am I feeling like I'm afraid to speak up in this group even? And so she has a really interesting background where she's been classically trained in opera and knows voices. And so this class was just really transformational for me to realize things like the way that your body posture is, or the way that you use your voice has an impact on those around you, and how often you might speak up or be interrupted.
And I've seen plenty of cases where I go out and, somebody will say, well, I'll take 2 more questions, and everybody else back down, and it'll be the men that ask the questions, and then they'll ask more questions, and the person will keep talking, and I'm like, well, I have a question too then, if you're going to keep talking. But women don't assert themselves as much, and as soon as he said, well, I only take 2 more questions, I looked around the room, and the women sat back, and the men asked the questions. So I noticed that in order to get your voice heard, sometimes you have to be assertive. You have to move forward, and you have to ask these questions and put yourself in a position where you can be heard.
That leads me to,
I was going to say, but we do want Jim to speak, though.
So I think culturally, what happens a lot is that as men, we're expected to be the breadwinners. Like all these things are sort of the long-standing and hopefully changing, but we're expected to be breadwinners. We're expected to be leaders in the family, etc. And if you're not, then that you're seen as lesser. And so I think a lot of times, it's invisible to men that they're actually doing that they're playing that game. They don't even see the impact that it's having on the room. They don't even see the impact that it's having on the conversation. once you understand that and you start watching it, it's like a train wreck. I mean, it happens all the time, everywhere, and you can't stop seeing it. But I think it's largely invisible unless you've become aware of it somehow. And so there's either men, we need to go out and educate ourselves, because we can't expect women to come out and educate us. That's more work that we're asking for them to do just to be successful. Or we have to teach the men around us that this is happening. Maybe preaching to the choir here, but to your point, Angela, we ran a conference here in Madison called Madison Ruby. We stopped taking questions from the audience. It's 9 times out of 10, it was 1 or 2 or 3 people who wanted to show men who wanted to show how smart they were, and they would just drone on ad nauseum. It would be hard to get them to stop.
I think the hardest thing is when you're often with other male leaders as a female entrepreneur, and they don't recognize that this is actually a problem, and it becomes something that it's about you as a woman taking this the wrong way, or oh, we don't act that way, or we don't do this. And then it's really hard to fight that argument when it feels like 1 against 3 or 1 against 4, or maybe it's your organization leadership there saying that we don't have any biases against female.
No, I understand that's a problem, but I'm an ally.
Yes.
It's not.
Yes. No, not you. I'm saying in general, a lot of those organizations, that we need more people like you.
Absolutely, and everybody who says that they're an ally, they think that they have the full understanding. They don't.
I'll say one thing about this. I was recently talking to a really good friend of mine who's an entrepreneur, a really fabulous woman, and she was saying the most critical mentor that she had was an older senior executive in her company who just he was an ally, but peeled off the veneer and told her what was really going on all the time. Like, here's what the men are talking about, and here's how you need to deal with it. And it really gave her the confidence to go in there and feel like, I can say something about these 4 other middle management people because I have this senior ally that says that's and so that is another thing that our community and our senior leadership and our non-minority leadership or the male leadership can really do is mentor somebody and then be brutally honest about what you're hearing and what you're seeing. I'll just give an example of sort of what Sabrina Madison does. If you ever watch her Facebook post sometimes, it's sort of like peeling back. It's like, okay, this is what I'm hearing as a black woman here in Madison, and she just puts it out there. And it's eye-opening, I think, for some of us. And so if you want to be that eye-opening mentor to a woman, you can help us fight back.
I think we need more men to come forward and say, hey, we're willing to do this. I know for me, Mark Bakken at HealthX Ventures has been such a phenomenal mentor. And from the time that I started working at his company, he would pull me along. I sat in on VC pitches with him. He introduced me to all sorts of people. Every step of the way, he made time for me. And I don't even think publicly he makes a big deal about the support that he gives to women. And so maybe more men need to come forward and say like, hey, I support this and I'll stand behind this woman.
I think when you give that sort of support, if you follow it up with, oh yeah, and by the way, I just gave Rachel all this support, like that seems to take away maybe a little bit. But then there are also, this is the way I think about it. But then there's also now examples for other people to follow saying, oh, Mark Bakken can do that? Well, I can do that in my smaller company, whatever.
Maybe how do women find the men that can support them? That's, I think, the missing piece.
How can they find mentors that support them?
Yeah, how does somebody find somebody like you, or how do the women entrepreneurs maybe, or women in the audience that want to become entrepreneurs find a strong mentor like that?
That's an excellent question. I think part of the I mean, just being successful entrepreneurs, a lot of it is, it's not what you know, it's not who you know, but it's who knows you, right? And so I think once you put yourself out there, which I realize is a privileged thing to say, but once you put yourself out there, then people will be able to identify you and probably want to hook their trailer to your, hook their wagon to your truck. But I think if you listen to, if you listen and watch and see what's going on in the circles that you network in, those people will sort of pop out, and you have to listen. And maybe it's something like this where you hear a name and then you reach out to them or what have you. But the other thing that I would do is just ask, get to know a lot of people and ask for their advice. But at the same time, realize that they're playing a slightly different game, and so take the advice with a grain of salt, if that's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, and with this discussion of putting yourself out there and having to be assertive, I want to go to you, Alex, because you've talked about times where you've been assertive and basically, or just said things directly, and then people have said, oh, you're too aggressive, you should smile more, you're not being bubbly enough. Have you found any effective response to that type of comment?
Oh, response. I just think internally, I usually think to myself, if I was a man and I was just speaking straightforwardly or matter-of-factly, I wouldn't get a comment of, you need to be more cheerful, or you need to be more, nice or, fluffy. I think that's kind of, I don't know if I really respond to it, but I have gotten in the past, you're very direct, you're very straightforward, as if it's a negative thing. And, if you look at what I say, even if a man said it, it would not be questioned at all. And that's one thing I've always noticed. And my dad said that he notices with women as well. I'll tell my dad that I've gotten that comment, he'll say, you're just a strong woman, and what strong women deal with that is that if you just say things and you don't just smile and try to make it a really fluffy, sugar-coated comment, that it's too aggressive. And I think in law, because I'm a lawyer, so I think you have to say things matter-of-factly, because when you're asked a question, it's a factual answer they want. So sometimes it's not easy to just make it a really cheerful, fake answer, or I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The next question I want to ask, and we'll start with Angela, since you work with children, but then anyone else can jump in, of how can we prepare young boys, young girls, foster this women's entrepreneurship, that women would want to be entrepreneurs and men would want to support them as entrepreneurs?
So last week, so as a director, I'll walk through the building and make sure that everything is running smoothly. And I stop in a dramatic play area and I sit down and I watch the children play. So one boy decided that he was a nurse, and the girl said, no, you can't be a nurse, only girls are nurses. He's like, no, my uncle's a nurse. Your uncle a girl? And like, duh. And so I'm watching the conversation go back and forth between them. And so she tells him, here, put this fire hat on. And she was adamant, I want you to be a fireman, not a nurse. And he's like, no, I'm going to be a nurse. And he balls his hands up, and so he looks over at me. And so I said, well, it's okay if he's a nurse. She's like, no, it's not okay. And I realized that the actions and the reactions that we have are rooted in us from cultural traditions and practices. And I believe that in order to guide our children, we have to start them from the beginning and just start over. So first of all, children are blank pieces of paper. They start off as blank pieces of paper. They don't decide who is going to be a nurse or who's going to be a doctor. They go from what they see. So we have to guide them to be who they are and to teach them as they go, just to guide them and not to say, hey, girls are nurses, boys are firefighters. We have to guide them into what they want to be and tell them that it's okay to be who they want to be. My parents instilled in me that I could be whatever I wanted to be. And so I just hit them with all of these questions. My mom said that she thinks that I ask all the questions ever in the world. So what if, and why, and what if I wanted to be this, and what if I wanted to be that? And she's like, you can be whatever you want to be. And I'm like, what can I do with standing on one leg? If you can, try it. So she would let me try different things. Like I would go to school with one purple sock, one pink sock, one yellow sock. But as I got older, I noticed that people would look at me funny when I did that. When I was younger, none of the other kids cared. They didn't care if I had on a yellow shirt with a green pair of pants. They were like, oh, Angela, let's come over here and play. But as I got older, people would look at me funny. I would get snide remarks, and I'm like, okay, maybe I should dress like everybody else and fall into line like everybody else. 3 years ago, I decided to shave one side of my hair, but it took me months to get the courage to do it. I loved it. I wanted to see what it looked like. When I move my hair to this side, I have one side shaved, and I rock it. Like, I rock it. Look me up on Facebook. I have photos where I rock that hairstyle, and I loved it, but it took a lot to get to that point because of stereotypes and the way that people look at you. And I had to build that confidence up. And I believe that we have to guide our children that way too. If this is what you like, go for it. Be who you are. We wouldn't have the Picassos in the world if we took the crayon and said, hey, draw inside the lines. This is where your eyes are supposed to be. When I go through my teacher's classroom, if I see 2 eyes right here in the nose, I know that the teacher directed that. So we start all over again. Hey, where did you see this, or where should this go? Kids should be who they are. And I think that that's what changes the world and make us better, by being us and not being like everybody else. If I came in and she had the same shirt on that I had on, and she had the same shirt on, I'd be like, ugh, what's different about us? I love the difference. The differences between our cultures. The kids want to play in my hair, I let them play in my hair. I don't mind. They ask questions, they want to twist it. Some days, people pop up at the daycare. I have a beret over here and a car hanging out over here because I let them be who they are. And if it's cute, I wear it for the day. But if it's not, I just take it out. So I just let kids be who they are. And I think that we should start them off letting them be who they are and guiding them, and not saying, this is who you are, this is what you're going to be, this is the way you should speak. And I think we'll have a better world, and we wouldn't have these discussions that we're having today.
So a lot of support and embracing of who people are. I'm going to read an audience question. So also, if you guys want to ask an audience question, you can fill out the card and hand it to Chris over here. But here's one that says, what things do women do really well that men can learn from? And I'm going to focus this on entrepreneurship specifically.
I just because I'm a woman, I'm going to let Ruth go first.
Yeah. Because I'm a woman. Allow it. I always think that women are actually fantastic negotiators, but we don't get the credit for it as much as a result of just stylistic differences. We have a position open at the city, I won't say which one, but it's one where it has historically been held by white men, and there's a lot of negotiating involved in it, and the last person who had it, who had been there for a while, was like a very loud, brash guy, really nice. But I don't know that he was necessarily very effective. There are women who are working under him that are just a little bit more, direct, soft, in a positive way. I don't think that's a negative word. And actually, I think have done a much better job negotiating some big deals. But as we try to fill that position, those women don't see themselves as being qualified, because he set such an example of what negotiating is. And in rooms that I'm in where we're negotiating big deals, I do feel like women have a way of just continuing the conversation without getting tempers flared up and people storming out of rooms. I don't know. So that's one of the places that I think that just that stereotypical female behavior is actually very positive. And I think a lot of times we look at it as could be a negative trait to be polite or a little less aggressive. And they're actually very positive traits. So.
people in the audience ask questions too? I mean, there's a reason why we're all sitting here and all that. I mean, I don't understand what the pieces of paper are for. And here I'm being an assertive woman, okay? And also an older woman. I don't see any older women over here.
I'm old.
Find out of it.
I just look young.
When you're over 16, you just came back from Wharton Business School where they paid me to talk about big data, and then you went over to Boston University where they paid me to talk about AI, and then you come over here to Madison and you find people telling me that, oh gosh, we don't want you on our Madison Council Advisory Board on IT and all that. We've got a bunch of young thinkers and all of that. You wonder what's happening to the city. Is there some youth bias that's shutting women out? Why aren't there maybe 5 or 10 great women? A person who's really supported women out here and gotten a great group going, Madison Area Business Consultants, Eric Brown's organization. You could have staffed this table 3 times over with great women who've started businesses and been running them for quite some time in this wonderful city.
Yeah, we could turn on the question of, I mean, is there a youth bias, do you see, in the entrepreneurship culture in Madison?
Oh, yes, I would say yes, there is, for sure. I mean, I think that, and as someone who has aged out of that YP group recently, not that recent. But yeah, there's just a youth bias, I think, in general, and I think that that's part of that because it's shiny and new and exciting. I do think that with groups like 100 State and actually the network that Joanne has put together of mentors and that people are definitely harnessing the energy of some of that experience for sure. But I think in terms of, magazine covers and panels and those kind of things that they do trend younger. I think that that's probably just a societal thing.
We don't see a ton of, in a lot of the entrepreneurial groups, you don't see a lot of older people coming out to attend the event. So I don't know if yeah, I mean,
there hasn't been an event in Madison that I haven't been at, that I haven't spoken at.
No, but I mean, I think just on like a consistent basis and maybe a variety of.
I don't get it.
Maybe like you come, but most of the room tends to be like the same general age group.
And also SCORE in their counseling and work too, so yeah.
Huge. And as you were saying, some of the senior males make tremendous mentors along this line.
Yes.
So how do we find them and encourage them to come out to these groups? So maybe that's a better way to word the question.
I think there's a youth bias generally, but when we look at entrepreneurs that are the most successful entrepreneurs, they tend to be a little bit older. They tend to be in their late 30s and their 40s. Pleasant Rowland, who founded the Pleasant Company, American Girl Love, she didn't get going until she was 45.
Right.
So I think that's just generally an issue, but there are a lot of fantastic entrepreneurs that are in their 30s and their 40s, 50s, and 60s that are bringing the resources that they learned to entrepreneurial efforts and fostering and being mentors for the next generation.
I think part of the, what is the definition of entrepreneurship? I know that a lot of people conflate that with the tech industry these days, and if you look and read anything about tech, it's all about younger folks. Somebody said use the word harnessing earlier, and I think that a lot of that bias is towards sort of trying to take advantage of younger folks because they don't have the experience. They don't know that working 80, 90 hours a week is unusual, and they enjoy being at the office and playing ping pong and doing all those things. So I think that certainly contributes to it. Not only that, but working all day and then going out in the evening to a meetup is, that's what you have to do, right? And so that's what a lot of people do. And I think all of those things skew it.
Yeah, very much agree. That was my reaction as well, is that when I think of entrepreneurship today, a lot of it is focused on tech, and that inherently tends to be younger people because we grew up with technology and we're kind of the natives of that world. And a lot of the biggest companies right now are doing really well are like Facebook, Uber, Snapchat. These companies are catered toward young people, and they're made by young people who understand the market. Obviously, there's exceptions. You work in IT and tech, and you're not, Generation Z. There are exceptions, but I think that you hit nail on the head with that.
Earlier we were talking about ways that men can support women in entrepreneurship, and an audience question was, how can women better support women in entrepreneurship? And we mentioned mentoring earlier, which I think is probably a big one, but anything else that comes to mind?
Support each other. Definitely support each other. Not looking at other women as a threat, but I believe we will go further if we just supported each other.
So I think understanding some of the structural things that go on. So we know, study shows that men and view women with more scrutiny, right? So I think, and I don't know chicken and egg here, but if that is what is happening, then it means women prepare more, right? Because, well, it's obvious, if you're gonna be under a higher level of scrutiny, what are you gonna do? You're gonna prepare to meet that higher bar. Well, that's fine. If you know that you're doing that because you're going to be scrutinized at a different level. The hurdles are on the high, not in the low. But it can be an advantage. It can be an advantage that you come in as to be the most prepared person in the room, the most prepared entrepreneur. You can turn that to your advantage and really kick butt. Or you can turn it into an obstacle where it becomes a fear thing and you just prepare and never get off the starting block to move forward. And I think that women can really provide the confidence to say, get going, girl. It is time to get going. Jump. In a way that really is helpful and builds confidence when you have your colleagues say, all right, you've done enough. Stop preparing that business plan, get in there, make that pitch, make that sale, track that in. So I think that's the one thing that we can do, but we have to kind of understand the mechanisms that are playing and identify them in order for us to turn them into advantages and not let them be things that hold us back.
I think getting your tribe together, really like those strong women who are in your circle that will support you. Heather's been great. There's like Ashley Hell from Bendyworks, Leah Rowe, who's starting Culture Community. There's some really amazing women in the community who really are helping to uplift other women and other entrepreneurs. So finding your tribe, I think, can go a long way in building your confidence and giving you that ass kicking.
With that idea of kind of helping people, give them a little push out into the world, when you read articles about women's entrepreneurship, a lot of times people will cite studies that say women are more risk averse. Do you think that's true? If it is true, how do you change it? If it's not true, how do you change that perception?
I think it's absolutely true about the Midwest in general. There's a culture around failure is bad. You can go to the extreme of the West Coast, and there's a fetishism of failure, which you don't want. Ultimately, what you want is learning, and so you can try something. If it doesn't work, at least if you're taking away the lessons, that's great. But I think, as opposed to men versus women, I think there's the preparation that Shauna was just talking about means that you're going to do a lot of work that nobody sees maybe, and then maybe you actually figure out that things aren't a good idea, or you talk yourself out of something. But I think, in general, it's more calculated, would be my experience, what I've seen, but Midwest, absolutely, I can't speak for women broadly.
I just also want to say the Doyen Group does a Connect event where they have a featured entrepreneur, and I love A Million Cups and I love all the opportunities to showcase the entrepreneurships, but the Connect events are really different because it's a really safe place, and the featured entrepreneurs that come, they are so brave because they have told us such stories of failure or near failure, or we had one a few months ago who literally brought a page out of her diary from a year earlier at the nadir of like what she was going through. And to be able to see people who face that fear You know, we had somebody else tell us what was in her checking account at one of those events. To see that and then to see how they persevere through it is really powerful. It's really powerful, and it's not something that you're going to see when you go to a pitch night, but it's really meaningful to encourage women and people that are just dipping their toe into the concept of entrepreneurship to find their tribe and to find their confidence.
Did any of the rest of you have people or stories that kind of helped, inspire or encourage you on your way to being an entrepreneur?
Well, I'll say I had a retail floral shop for years, and I was a wedding florist. And when I left that job, I worked as a counselor at WIBIC, Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative Corporation for Businesses. And I think when looking back, it was the people who provided safe space for me to just cry. I did a lot of crying as a florist, which you don't think you're going to do as a florist. But just, for me, it was less about I had great business mentors too, but having women entrepreneurs who had done, the same mistakes I had made, which is, not enough money in the beginning, not asking for help or money until it was, the problem was too big. I'm forgetting what the question.
People or stories that kind of encouraged you?
Oh, that encouraged me. And so I think it was even less than those success stories and successful business people that were around me that were helping me, but were the people that had, as Chandra was talking about before, had made those same mistakes that I was making at the same time, that were the ones that were the most useful to me in those dark entrepreneurial days. But I don't know if other people have.
I think for me, I definitely haven't had an easy life. I had a baby when I was 16. I've dealt with a lot of different failures along the way, where the only option was to do something else or to try. And you heard a lot of no's or a lot of you're not gonna make it. And with each little victory, you're like, well, wait, I can do this. And for me, it was not seeing. I didn't see enough female leaders, and I kept I started 1 Million Cups to kind of help female entrepreneurs come out, and then I'm like, well, I'm preaching about this stuff, why don't I do it? And why don't I just take that jump? The worst that can happen is that I go back to a full-time job at some point, but I've got to give this a try, and it's the best decision that I've ever made. And I think that for me, dealing with the failures of the past or the struggles really prepared me for what I was going to get into.
For me, I guess just my father. He's an entrepreneur, and he never encouraged me to view things through a gender lens of any sort. I never felt disadvantaged for being a woman, to be honest with you. So I guess just my father, and I have a lot in common with him in general, and he always encouraged me to go to law school and to follow a similar path to him. So I would say he's one of the main people who's just an influence for me.
My story is determination. There's a book in the Bible, Nehemiah, and as he was building this wall, there were so many people coming against him, and he was like, nope, I'm not coming down, I have to build this wall. So they were trying to trick him to get him down, and he was like, nope. And that's my story. When I have a goal, I set my eyes on that goal, and I don't look to the left, I don't look to the right, I just keep going. And that's how I get to where I am. It's just determination, not worrying about what other people have to say. Or when there are days that I cry, because there are days where I cry and I get discouraged, and I just remember what my goals are, and I get up and I keep going. I don't have this pity party day after day after day where you see some people that be like, how you doing? Well, my leg has been hurting for 4 weeks, and after a while people get tired of hearing that and they stop asking how you doing. So I've learned to just stay the task, keep going, no matter what. If you have to cry, cry. It's okay to cry, but whatever you do to get up and keep moving.
I would have to give a shout out. She's not an entrepreneur, but it would be my grandmother. She was in politics in the 70s here in Madison and served in the assembly. But when I look at her life, she had 4 kids and then was widowed, and then decided to come back to the University of Wisconsin. She was Dean of Students at the University of Wisconsin. Got married to a widow and had 5 kids, so there's 9 kids. And then what did she decide to do? She decides to run for political office. And she really taught me the similarities between getting out there and putting yourself forward as a candidate for political office and then doing it as an entrepreneur. There's so many parallels about knowing what the solution is to an existing problem, to how to get people to understand that same dream that you have, the vision that you have. How do you build a team with very few resources? Usually entrepreneurs are using interns or people that are willing to work for equity. In a political campaign, you've got volunteers and students. How do you deal with failure, rejection all the time? How do you find a solution and find somebody who might be against you and turn them into an advocate? And then just how do you get it done? How do you just really get it done and get it done fast? And those are the lessons that my grandmother taught me that made her a successful politician, and those are the lessons I take every single day in building something. So, Midge.
Yeah, she sounds pretty awesome. Okay, we'll do one more quick audience question, and then I'll ask you guys one more question. But what do you do to relate to others having the same kinds of challenge or bias challenges? So I guess maybe if you come across an entrepreneur who's facing bias for being a woman or a woman of color, like what advice would you give to them?
My advice to folks always is just to find people that they can talk to honestly about it. So I do actually, at my job at the city even, come across people who I know are struggling and could use help by speaking to someone that has gone through it in the same ways.
Okay, so last question, because it's a little over 7:30 now. Ways we can put this into action. What's one local woman-owned business that you want to promote?
Just one?
You could do 2, I'd allow it.
I'm in a social networking group called Becoming Her that Shakia Curtis started. And Becoming Her is a group of women entrepreneurs where we encourage each other. We're on group meet, so you'll get a message as early as 5 a.m. saying, rise and shine, this is your day, you can do it. Anything cliche as that, as to different things that are going on in the community, ways to get out there, educational values. So that has helped me a lot. And then being able to reach out to these other women and say, hey, here's the problem that I have right now, and getting advice from them.
Well, if you want to support more than one woman entrepreneur, then join the Doyen group, because they actually make every single dollar count. There are great women entrepreneurs that are in our community, but you can't go and support them because that's not the nature of their business. Like Tara Linda Willis at Curate is doing some fantastic and interesting stuff, and Kelly Ellers at Idea, that the folks, if you need branding. But not everybody in the audience is going to have that need for it. But if you're looking to film a commercial, go talk to Natalie Hinckley at Hinckley Productions. If you're hungry, go get Alex Lindemer at Short Stack. Eat pancakes, or get Monica O'Connell at Curtis and Cakes to do your next cakes. So it really kind of depends on what you're looking for. Or if you are really terrified of public speaking, go talk to Veronica Rickert and get her to coach you on that, whether you're a male or a female. So there's lots of different ways. It just sort of depends on what do you need. And I bet that there's going to be a woman entrepreneur or a woman-owned business that can fill that need.
My first thought was my favorite clothing store on State Street, which is Karen & Company, Sassy Press. I think it's co-owned by a husband and wife. It's not just Karen, but that's my favorite. There's actually a lot of businesses. I guess I would say also Melia on State Street. I go to the Barcode a lot. That's a franchise owned by women in Chicago. Arch. Well, these are like beauty companies, but these places I thought of because that's where I go around here. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys all so much for participating in our panel. Let's all give them a big round of applause. I am handing it off to Kristen.